my name is Dr. Ruthie, Dr. Ruth Newstifter if you want to be formal. I'm a professional sexuality educator and a university faculty member, but today I'm here thanks to the folks at funwares.com who make it possible for me to answer your questions about sex and relationships. If you would like to send in a question, you can send it right on down to AskDrRuthie at funwares.com. I answer just as many as I can each month and put them up here on YouTube, so I'll see what I can do for you. Here comes a question from my email from a woman that I think that many folks will have similar concerns as. Dear Dr. Ruthie, I'm 23 and for years considered myself asexual. As a teenager, I never had what most call raging hormones. I never really cared about sex or anything that comes from it. There have only been a few times when I've had sex and it was actually enjoyable for me. The rest of the time it's extremely painful. I've only had one partner, and as he was examining me one day, he noticed every time that he was around the area that it would shut off, if that makes sense, without my knowledge of it happening. He's very sexual and we're married now. I feel miserable anytime the topic is brought up. Sometimes I try to appease him by just doing it, but it's a horrible experience that makes me want it even less afterwards. I feel like I'm not in control of my body. Nothing arouses me. I've seen a therapist about it and also a hormone specialist, and he only found that I have low testosterone. I used hormone cream for a while hoping it would fix things, but it didn't seem to work. I asked my family doctor over and over, and she said, "Well, you're a small girl. This can't be all there is. Please, 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 please help me. My husband and I are both miserable. It seems like all of our problems come from a lack of sex. Please help. I can offer any info needed. I don't know what to do. Nothing is working." All right, well, deep breath. All right, you came to the right place, because the first thing I want you to know is that, you're telling me that there's more to it than you're just a small girl, and I absolutely agree with you. Obviously, you're in a lot of distress, and your concerns are real, and the problems that you're having are real, and they're really beyond you're just a small girl. I'm very sorry that you have had such frustrating experiences with the medical community in dealing with the situation. I wish I could say that it's easy to find a doctor who takes things more seriously. Unfortunately, as you've learned, it's really difficult to find physicians who take these things more seriously, especially depending on where in the world you're located, right? Which you don't mention here. You did absolutely the right thing, though, by starting with medical practitioners and by getting your hormones looked at and things like that. If your testosterone is low and the testosterone treatment didn't work for you, I encourage you to find a doctor who can oversee that treatment and let them know what didn't work, how long you tried it, and what went on, and maybe discuss the possibility of trying it again in a way that may be more effective for you under that physician's guidance. There are folks out there who are knowledgeable and supportive about these things. I'm just sad that they weren't the first ones that you found and that they're not easier to find than they are. Unfortunately, medical health professionals oftentimes get very little, next to no, education and information about sexual concerns, and can be just as uncomfortable about it as the general public often tends to be, sad to say. So there's kind of 2 or 3 issues here, and I think that one thing is taking this giant concern and maybe breaking it into parts and seeing which ones you want to deal with in which ways. That might help to make it a little less overwhelming. One of them is that, just kind of going in chronological order of your email, is that you haven't had really any you've only had one sexual experience a few sexual experiences that were enjoyable for you. So the first thing I want to point out is that when a pattern starts to happen, or even just a single sexual experience that's really negative, when we start to get nervous and we tense up and we feel like the next one's going to be crappy too, maybe for good reason, maybe it's likely to be crappy too, right? So your body's accurate. And we kind of lock down and tense up. And by we, I mean folks with vaginas and vulvas. And so that can be a part of what's happening, is that we're in a situation where our body's anticipating a negative experience and says, "No, I don't want this," and tries to let you know that by kind of shutting down and locking up. And this is very real. This is not an all in your head thing, because our mind and our body are very much connected. So anything that's centered in one place or the other is very real and connected to the other areas as well. So my first response to that is stop having sex that you don't like. From your description, the sex that you're having or attempting to have with your husband is making both of you miserable. So stop. That won't necessarily make the relationship problem any better, but at least you're not continuing to have these traumatizing experiences for yourself and your relationship, and perhaps you can feel in more control of your body and be able to give yourself time to take a deep breath to approach the problem and find new solutions while you're not in the midst of your body trying to defend itself and your mind trying to defend itself from these negative experiences sexually and in your relationship. So taking a deep breath and pausing and saying, this is not, I'm not trying to make this the end of sex forever. I'm just trying to put a cap on the negative experiences so that we can stop, restart, and find new solutions. It may be that you are asexual, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It can be a challenge to figure out how to handle that within relationships, but there are wonderful resources out there for asexuality, and there's great ways of redefining sex so that you can get things that you enjoy out of sexual interactions without them necessarily being intercourse that you don't like. I do talk about broader definitions of sex in other videos. You can write to me again and we talk more about this, but I just want to plant that seed for now. The next thing is trying to find professionals that can be helpful and useful to you. The concern you have is very common, what you're outlining for me, but it's also worth a lot of individual one-on-one attention. I would encourage you to go to asect.org, www.AASECT, American Association for Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. They have a global list of professionals in the mental health field who are specially trained to help with sexual concerns and sexual relationship concerns. Those folks oftentimes also can give you resources in your area or their area that are for physicians and other physical specialty health folks who are better trained and in these types of issues and might be able to help you more. So I also want you to turn to those to get continuing assistance because you're doing the right thing by reaching out. We just haven't found the right people to reach out to yet. There are lots of things we can look into. Gina Ogden, Ogden, Dr. Gina Ogden has done some great books on different kinds of ways of looking at sex and communication with our partners and what we enjoy and what we don't. And she has a very broad definition of sex that can be very useful. So I recommend her writing, and she also does some great workshops with women too. But finding a professional in your area who can work with you and your spouse, because you both deserve wonderful intimacy, but the definition of that can be so much bigger than intercourse. And finding something that makes you both happy and feeds your relationship as well as yourselves is definitely possible. Also, you know, the professionals you work with can, if it is that you're just a small girl, which I take you seriously. You tell me it's not just that, but if that's a contributing situation, you know, working with vaginal dilators in different ways can also help with that. But we want it to be a well-rounded approach so that all of kind of the different concerns are being worked on. Okay, this was a really big answer and a really big question. I hope that this gives you some directions to go in. Please pursue those sources of assistance and know that all is not lost by any means. You're not alone in these concerns. There are people who specialize in working with us in the long term with individuals and with couples, and you can find them, and it will be such a breath of fresh air. Hold tight, stand by each other, be a team in addressing this, and respect your body and the messages that it's giving you each step of the way. I'm Dr. Ruthie, and I'll see you at the next video.